Generally, when a card gets banned, it's a sign that the card was too powerful for the game. However, sometimes a card is banned not because it's simply too strong, but because another card is able to abuse its great effect. Today, we're going to go over several cards that got banned in large part, or in some cases, entirely due to how well another card abused them. And starting us off at number 10, we have Substitoad. This is a level 1 Aqua monster with 100 attack and 2000 defense. It is the effect where you contribute 1 monster to special summon a frog from your deck, and this is not once per turn. It also makes it so that all of your frog monsters can't be destroyed by battle, but that's very less important. This simple lack of a once per turn on Substitoad allows you to churn through your entire deck, tributing a monster to summon a frog, and then tributing the frog you just summoned to summon yet another frog until you've dumped all the frogs you could ever ask for straight to the graveyard. Now, this on its own doesn't do a lot, but luckily we have a card that perfectly abuses Substitoad's graveyard fill-in abilities in Ronintoadin. This is a level 2 Aqua built to only work with the frog archetype, but it went just a bit too far that goal. On a non-once per turn ability, this card allows you to banish a frog monster from your grave to special summon it from your graveyard. So, every time you activate Substitoad, that's one time you can bring back the Amphibious Samurai for another duel. This is not only very powerful with link monsters and the like, it also usually just ends the game, as you can easily combine this with cards like Mass Driver, which allow you to tribute a monster to burn your opponent to just kill them right away. Honestly, this FTK application isn't even necessary to make the card broken these days. Making 3 Totally Awesomes or whatever other generic boss monster would already be good enough. But this FTK was extremely scary before we got links and XCs and the like. Considering just how strong this FTK could be, Substitoad got banned. However, in recent years, the script has actually been flipped on these two cards. Substitoad has come off the ban list, and Ronintoadin has gotten the ban hammer instead. This is because Ronintoadin was very powerful with the Sprite deck for some time, and without Ronintoadin exactly, Substitoad is perfectly fine. It's really just the combination of these two cards exactly that's such a problem. The main reason this card isn't higher up on this list is that, generally speaking, both of these cards are pretty good. It's not that one card was broken and got another card banned that was otherwise fine. It's a situation where 2 good cards became broken together, so it can't be any higher on this list. And at number 9, we have Elder Entity Norden. This is a level 4 Fairy Fusion with 2000 attack and 2200 defense. It requires 1 Synchro or Xyz monster and another Synchro or Xyz monster as its materials. And when it's special summoned, you can target a level 4 lower monster in your graveyard and special summon it, but its effects are negated and it's banished when Norden leaves the field. Now, Norden is overall a very powerful card, and even saw some play with relatively normal fusion spells, like Fusion Substitute, which you could use to return your Norden back to the extra deck and draw a card afterwards. However, it's by far most known for being combined with Instant Fusion. This normal spell card has the effect to pay 1000 life points to special summon a level 5 or lower fusion monster from your extra deck, but it can't attack and it's destroyed during the end phase. And you can only activate 1 instant fusion each turn. This turns Norden from a card that requires a ton of investment but can extend your plays to a card that requires no investment at all and can still extend your plays just as much. Being able to do things like Synchro summon a monster and then activate instant fusion to resummon your tuner and make another Synchro or anything similar can turn just okay turns into amazing turns. Now, the main thing keeping Norden from being higher in this list is that, similar to the number 10 spot, Norden is pretty strong even without instant fusion. Norden would definitely see play if instant fusion was banned and it were unbanned, but it wouldn't be anywhere near as it was back in the day. Really, instant fusion is the more problematic card here. Keeping it around means that any level 5 or lower fusion monster is automatically far more suspect, and the broken fusions are even more broken. Norden is a great card that unfortunately has to remain banned until the TCG finally bites the bullet and admits that instant fusion isn't an okay card to have in the game. And at number 8, we have Level Eater. This is a level 1 Dark Insect with 600 attack and 0 defense. It is the effect where if it's in your grave, you can target a level 5 or higher monster you control, reduce its level by 1, and then special summon Level Eater. This effect is not once per turn. However, Level Eater also has the effect where it can't be tributed except for a tribute summon. This drawback was added specifically to stop all the Mass Driver style shenanigans the card would likely have gotten into otherwise. This was mostly used as part of synchro decks as a way to let them modulate the levels of their monsters to make even more synchros. For most of its history, Level Eater was a good, but not amazing card. It gave these decks a lot more flexibility, as they could more easily go into synchros like Formula Synchron, with easy access to a ton of level 1 monsters. Not to mention being able to take stars off of monsters like TG Hyper Librarian that you'd want to keep around for a while. So those stars can instead be used to make synchros right away. However, this card ended up quickly becoming broken with future cards, or rather, future mechanics. Level Eater's days were numbered the second Konami decided to make Link monsters. Turning one level on a monster into an entire Link material is one of the best trades you could possibly make. With the right lineup of extra deck monsters, this could let you turn a single high-level monster into any Link 4 you want. Combining these with multiple forms of utility was way too powerful. So Level Eater really didn't stand a chance. Level Eater doesn't really get a higher spot on this list, mostly because it's not broken by a single card, but rather by a ton of cards that allow it to work as part of a larger engine. So it's slightly outside of what we're talking about in this video. Still, taking a card that was always just fine and turning it to what would have been one of the most broken cards in the game with a new summoning mechanic is pretty notable. And at number 7, we have Hot Red Dragon Archfiend King Calamity. This is a level 12 Dark Dragon Synchro monster with 4000 attack and 3500 defense. It requires 2 tuners and 1 non-tuner Dark Dragon Synchro monster as its materials. It has the effect where, when this card is synchro summoned, your opponent can't activate cards for the rest of this turn. Also, cards your opponent controls can't activate their effects. Also, your opponent can't activate cards or effects in response to this effect. If this destroys a monster by battle, you inflict damage to your opponent equal to that monster's original attack. If this card in your possession is destroyed by an opponent's card, you can target a level 8 or lower Dark Dragon Synchro monster in your graveyard and special summon it. The purpose of King Calamity is to be one of the most effective and difficult to stop OTK tools in the game, having a massive attack stat and, if it hits over an attack position monster, dealing a set 4000 damage to your opponent essentially no matter what monster they have on the field. The upgraded Dark Ruler No More effect on summon is probably the most broken thing on the card, shutting off literally all cards your opponent has for the rest of the turn, which makes the upcoming OTK all but inevitable. Of course, no one actually ever used King Calamity for this purpose. Not only because RDA as a deck is ultimately a bit weak, but mostly because Crimson Dragon exists. This is a level 12 Light Dragon Synchro monster with a few effects, but the main one that matters is that, as a quick effect, you can target one level 7 or higher Synchro monster you control, return this card to the extra deck, and then special summon a Dragon Synchro monster from your extra deck with the same level. This can let you tag into King Calamity if you're able to make 2 level 12 synchros. And worst of all, there was a deck around that specialized in making level 12 synchro monsters. Enter Centurion, a deck that was built around easily summoning its boss monsters Centurion Legatia and Centuria Auxilia. The deck can pretty easily make 2 level 12 synchros, and since it doesn't have any restrictions built into the deck, making a Crimson Dragon to tag into whatever you want is very viable. This allowed you to special summon King Calamity easily, and very unfortunately for your opponent, on their turn. This turns King Calamity from a funny OTK card into a turn skip, which was both broken and extremely frustrating. It was only a matter of time before one of these 2 cards got hit, and Konami decided to take King Calamity out instead of Crimson Dragon, despite Crimson realistically being a much more powerful card overall. This is likely to allow Centurion to remain a more powerful deck, as realistically summoning Shooting Quasar Dragon is good enough to win most of your games. It just doesn't prevent your opponent from even fighting back. This was probably the smart hit, but it is a shame King Calamity had to die for Crimson Dragon's sins. And at number 6, we have Buster Blader Destruction Sword. This is a level 1 Dark Dragon Tuner with 400 attack and 300 defense. It is the effects where you can target a Buster Blader you control and equip this card to it as an equip spell, and you can special summon it while it's equipped, but only once per turn. However, it also has the effect where, while it's equipped to a monster in any way, your opponent can't special summon from the extra deck. This is an incredibly annoying effect to deal with, but it's kept in check by the fact that it can only equip itself to a very specific monster. Getting out a monster named Buster Blader and Destruction Sword out is pretty resource intensive, so you're not likely to be able to back up this lock with something like an Omni Negate in a single turn. This all changed by the existence of Union Carrier. This is a Link 2 monster that requires any 2 monsters with the same type or attribute as a material. It is the effect where you can equip any monster from your hand or deck to any monster as long as they had the same type or attribute. You can't special summon the equipped monster if you equipped it from the deck, but that's not really important for Destruction Sword. This essentially lets any deck get a complete extra deck lock on a Link 2 monster as long as they can keep a Dark or Dragon monster on the board, which isn't even close to a tall task. You could even link off Union Carrier afterwards to extend your plays even further. Destruction Sword got the axe pretty quickly once players started to integrate this into their combos, but it's actually fully legal these days. This is because Union Carrier got banned instead, which makes sense as it's clearly the more problematic card. This is a pretty textbook example of a time Konami tried to get around banning a problematic card by banning around it, but ultimately had to cave and admit that they had made a mistake with Union Carrier. And at number 5, we have Gimmick Puppet Nightmare. This is a level 8 Dark Machine monster with 1000 attack and 2000 defense. You can special summon this card by tributing a face-up Xyz monster you control, but only once per turn. When you special summon Nightmare this way, you can special summon another Gimmick Puppet Nightmare from your hand or graveyard. However, it also has the effect where if this card is special summoned, you cannot special summon any monsters for the rest of this turn, except for Gimmick Puppet monsters. Now, by itself, Gimmick Puppet Nightmare is kind of an underwhelming card. It can be used as an extender, but most decks don't really want to trade an Xyz monster for the chance of making a rank 8, even Gimmick Puppets. They can help you make number 40 Gimmick Puppet of Strings, or number 88 Gimmick Puppet of Leo, but other cards in this strategy like Gimmick Puppet Rogue Doll, Gimmick Puppet Dreary Doll, or Gimmick Puppet Cattle Scream all do that, but way better. No, this card is mostly remembered for how it can lock your opponent out of their turn if you can special summon it to their field. When branded Expulsion was printed, people realized they could send Gimmick Puppet Nightmare and a Fallen of Albaz from their branded fusion in order to summon Lubellion the Searing Dragon. And if you had Expulsion, or some way to search it out, summon Gimmick Puppet Nightmare to your opponent's field. Combining this with the various fusion methods in branded that required a discard or banishing cards, and the fact that Expulsion can summon from banishment, and getting this lock set up was weirdly consistent. Once this became well known, Konami took action and banned branded Expulsion. Oh, they actually hit the problem card. Looks like Konami may have learned their lesson. After all, there are a ton of cards besides Nightmare with harsh restrictions if you summon them, so banning it wouldn't have done much. Just kidding, they printed Albion the Sanctifier Dragon soon after, which can also special summon a monster from your grave to your opponent's field. But this time, it's a fusion monster, so it's even easier to access. They ended up banning Nightmare the TCG to stop this combo, despite the fact that branded can still lock you out of special summons with different monsters in the same combo. So banning this card basically does nothing. Truly one of the banned cards of all time. And at number 4, we have the Tyrant Neptune. This is a level 10 water reptile with 0 attack and defense. This card cannot be special summoned. You can tribute summon it by tributing one monster. It gains the attack and defense of all monsters tributed to summon it. And when it is tribute summoned, you can target one of the cards you tributed to summon it and have its name become that card's name and its effect become its effect. Tyrant Neptune may seem like a cool, kind of gimmicky card, but it had some extremely powerful applications, namely with the card Lyralisc Independent Nightingale. This is a level 1 Wing Beast fusion monster with several effects. When it's fusion summoned with a Lyralisc Xyz, it gains levels equal to the number of materials that monster had. It also gains attack equal to its level times 500 and is unaffected by the effects of other cards. Finally, once per turn, you can inflict damage to your opponent equal to this card's level times 500. On its own, this card isn't all that threatening either. In fact, Lyralisc decks often don't even run the card because of how difficult it is to set up. However, its effect is very good when you shove it onto a card that wasn't balanced around its specific attributes. For example, a monster who starts at level 10 instead of level 1. Tributing a Tyrant Neptune over Nightingale makes Neptune a 6,000 attack monster that can burn your opponent for 5,000 damage each turn, and is completely immune to all of your opponent's card effects. You can even FTK your opponent by doing this twice, which is difficult as it requires having 2 normal summons to do, and summoning 2 Nightingales. But with cards like Double Summon or Brilliant Fusion to summon Gem Knight Seraph Knight, it's more than possible to pull this off. However, the actual FTK isn't often necessary. Barring a kaiju, there's basically no way to get rid of Neptune thanks to its massive attack points and card effect immunity, so you can usually just wait and let your opponent lose on the following turn. All of this is enabled by, what else? Instant Fusion, which allows you to bring out Nightingale with no cost. Somehow, this isn't even the only card that had to get banned because of an FTK with Lyralisc Independent Nightingale. It also had an FTK with Supreme King Dragon Starving Venom. This is a fusion monster that requires 2 Dark Pendulum monsters to summon, and can be summoned by tributing the monsters on field instead of using a fusion spell. You can target a monster you control and have Starving Venom gain its name and effect until the end of the turn. This is only a level 8 monster, but that's still enough to burn for 4,000 damage. So if you can get 4 Dark Pendulum monsters and a Nightingale in play, you can just burn your opponent for lethal, and that's not mentioning any other ways of cheating Starving Venom out. On one hand, you could say the Nightingale was the problem card here and that Starving Venom and Tyrant Neptune should be freed from the ban list, but it's pretty likely that another FTK with them pops up someday, so the ban isn't completely unwarranted. Still, Lyralisc Independent Nightingale is one of the few cards you can say was directly the cause of multiple other cards getting banned. And at number 3, we have Phoenixian Cluster Amaryllis. This is a level 8 fire plant monster with 2200 attack and 0 defense. It has the effect where it can only be special summoned by its own effect or by the effect of Phoenixian Seed. If this monster attacks, it's destroyed after damage calculation. If this card is destroyed, you inflict 800 damage to your opponent. And during the end phase, you can banish a plant from your grave to special summon this card from your graveyard in defense position. Amaryllis on its own is a fine card, though not particularly powerful. It's pretty easy to revive every turn if you can find a way to dump it, but it is a bit of a brick otherwise. However, the card can be abused to great effect. Topologic Bomber Dragon has the effect where if a monster is summoned to a zone it points to, you destroy all monsters in the main monster zones. This can be activated multiple times per turn, allowing you to destroy Amaryllis over and over. In fact, you can even destroy Amaryllis by summoning it to one of Bomber's Dragon zones. And then, if it's the end phase and you have a plant monster to banish, you can just summon it right back. Each time, you'll deal 800 damage to your opponent. So, if you can do this 10 times, you burn your opponent out of the game on the first turn. And thanks to plants having amazing combo pieces like Lone Fire Blossom and Erosa Mary Jasmine, it's actually pretty easy to not only get 10 plants in the grave, but to get access to both of these monsters on the first turn. As with most FTKs throughout the history of the game, this ended up getting banned for the sake of making the format less frustrating to play. And at number 2, we have Rank Up Magic Argent Chaos Force. This is a normal spell with the effects where you can target a rank 5 or higher Xyz monster you control, then special summon from your extra deck a CXYZ monster that's 1 rank higher using it as a material. Also, when a rank 5 or higher monster is summoned to your field, you can add this card from your graveyard to your hand, but you can only use this effect once per duel. Now, this card doesn't do a lot on its own. Rank up cards are powerful, but they're very clunky, largely due to mostly being unsearchable. The Phantom Knight's Rank Up Magic launch proved to be somewhat problematic just because being a Phantom Knight's card meant it was searchable, for example. Argent Chaos Force is also, technically, one of the most searchable Rank Up Magic cards in the game. While no card directly searches, it could be sent to the graveyard with the effect of Beatrice, Lady of the Eternal, a card that is now banned, but lasted far too long in the game. This can send any card from your deck to the graveyard, so you could send an Argent Chaos Force and then summon a rank 5 monster in any way to return it to your hand. This is cool, but not enough to be broken by itself. As good as rank ups can be, it's not worth using this as your Beatrice dump most of the time. At least it wouldn't be if it weren't for the fact that number as 0 Utopic Zexal exists. This is a monster that normally requires being summoned on top of 3 number Xyz monsters of the same rank. However, you can also summon it by slapping it over any Utopia monster and discarding any rank up magic spell. It also has a few effects, but the most important one is that you can detach a material to make it so your opponent can't activate cards or effects during their turn. That's right, it's King Calamity, but you don't even have to put in work to skip your opponent's turn. So what you could do is make Beatrice, bin Argent Chaos Force, then make a number S39 Utopia. Then immediately rank it into something like Utopia Prime so you can use it for Utopia Zexal. Once you summon the rank 5, you get your Argent Chaos Force back. Then discard it to win the game on the spot. That's right, the combo that abused this card didn't even activate it. The card was just discard fodder. Funnily enough, both of the other 2 main cards in this combo are now banned, both Utopic Zexal and Beatrice being considered too strong for the game now. So this is one of the few cards to get banned by 2 other actually problematic cards. Still, this isn't anywhere near as ridiculous as the number 1 spot on this list. And at number 1, we have Jet Synchron. This is a level 1 Fire Machine tuner with 500 attack and 0 defense. It has the effects where, if this card is in your graveyard, you can send a card from your hand to the grave to special summon it, but it's banished when it leaves the field. Also, if it's used as material for a synchro monster, you can add a junk monster from your deck to your hand. For most of this card's lifespan, it's been considered a strong but fair tuner monster. It gives you access to useful cards like Formula Synchron, and can turn bad cards in your hand into an extra tuner, on top of being accessible off of cards like a 1-for-1. This allowed it to see play in some synchro combo decks over the years, but it wasn't really considered a problem card for most of its lifetime. And honestly, it never really was. However, Cryston Halqifibrax was a huge issue. And rather than ban it, Konami decided that every single tuner monster needed to pay for its sins. Halqifibrax is a Link 2 monster that requires 2 monsters, including at least 1 tuner. and has 2 effects, each on a hard once per turn. When this card is link summoned, you can special summon a level 3 or lower tuner monster from your hand or deck, but its effects can't be activated this turn. Also, during your opponent's main or battle phase, you can banish this card to summon a tuner synchro monster from your extra deck and treat it as a proper synchro summon. As it turned out, being able to turn any 2 monsters, including at least 1 tuner, into any other tuner you wanted while also getting a powerful tuner synchro monster for free was kind of a problem. With these and other link monsters, you could go from 1 monster on field to generating 3 to 4 link materials, sometimes without even using a normal summon with the right combination of cards. Any level 3 or lower tuner that could be used to make either Halqifibrax or could be summoned off of it for additional plays had to go. Blackwing Steam the Cloak and Mecha Phantom Beast O-Lion summoning a token when they leave the field, too strong. Jet Synchron and Destrudo being link fodder for Halq and also being able to summon themselves back from the graveyard, too strong, must ban. Any tuner that could generate another body over the course of a Halqifibrax combo became a huge problem, as it simply gave you too much link material. While a few of the cards banned throughout this process would stay banned in the long run, such as Glow Up Bulb, most of these tuners would be unbanned without issue as soon as Halqifibrax got the axe. The worst part is that the thing that finally broke the camel's back wasn't just the effect to summon from deck, though that was really amazing. The final straw was when the card was used in combination with Artifact Dagda to set an Artifact Scythe from deck, which set you up to have Halqifibrax tag into TG Wonder Magician to destroy Scythe, which would trigger its effect and lock your opponent out of the extra deck for the rest of the turn. At this point, Konami finally admitted that this card just wasn't salvageable, and banned it alongside Scythe and then unbanned Jet Synchron and friends. Even after banning 5 other cards to try and save Halqifibrax, the card proved it was just too insane to keep around. This is easily the worst example of Konami banning cards because of a different, more problematic card, and completely failed to solve the problem, clearly earning the top spot on this list.